That I want to address the amendment is before you, the proposed rule, because it is not exactly the Senate rule. They have changed it, and I will, because of the constitutional problems, that's why they conveniently, in my opinion, left out the words that they left out. But before I do, to the people of South Carolina, this transparency thing started several years ago, when now Governor Haley, was Representative Haley, and I wrote editorial calling across the state for more transparency, more roll call voting. That's where we would go. Where we parted was when she wanted a law instead of doing it by rules. So the question becomes, why did we part? Where is that division? Where is our responsibility here in the Senate to the people of South Carolina? Where is the responsibility of us to the framers of our Constitution? Where is our responsibility to our oath of office? First of all, to the Senator from Charleston, Mr. Campson, you are dead on the money about the permanency, because it all goes back to the explicit provisions of the South Carolina Constitution. It goes back to the question of separation of powers that I felt you so eloquently addressed in the Post-Courier this morning. And you went through there, and I'll go back and start with there. I thought that you encapsulated very well the essential constitutional questions. And it will lead me to why I have to criticize my friend for Pickens' amendment, because he very carefully soft-pedaled the fact that he had removed out of the Judiciary Committee amendment the language which said the bill just doesn't go into effect until the constitutional amendment passes. Now, that, if you recall, I was told no rifles, so we have a constitutional amendment. And now I'm told we can have rule changes without a constitutional amendment. But the Senator from Charleston said it very well, and I quote, "Our Constitution mandates that only legislative rules or the Constitution itself can impose procedural requirements on one of our legislative chambers. Therefore, the recorded vote statute must first be enabled by the constitutional amendment," which he says he has offered. And then he goes on, and I quote, "This approach is necessary to honor our Constitution's separation of powers provision," and he goes down here and in very eloquent terms outlines that history of our constitutional separation of powers. There are those that say that the Constitution does not state all that it says. That reminds me, of course, of the philosophy that constitutions somehow can change with time and mean things other than what they say. And interestingly, that was addressed over a century and a half ago in this book. It's a book that I would commend to each of you, not necessarily for all of its accuracy, but for its philosophy on how to look at the Constitution. Its story on the Constitution. This weekend I had a chance to revisit this book. And in this book is contained the exact reasons that the provisions that were put into the U.S. Constitution and found their way into the South Carolina Constitution were put there. They were put there for specific reasons. And we will go over those reasons this afternoon. Because those reasons, if you take a strict constructionist view of the Constitution, or I take from Barry Goldwater's book, which I'll go to and quote, a conservative approach to the Constitution. To go forward with this legislation is to ignore the history of our Constitution, the reasons the framers put it in there, the language they chose, and also to ignore the separation of powers in this country, and to take a view, the very view that lots of members of our party criticize the other party for in Washington on Obamacare. That, well, it doesn't say that you can't do it in there, so somehow it is in there the power to do it. So we're going to do it. Let us look now at this section of our Constitution and the history of this Constitution. And in doing so, I want to start out, first of all, with the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Marshall, in 1803. He said, "The Constitution is either a superior, paramount law, unchangeable by ordinary means, or it is on a level with ordinary legislative acts, and like other acts, is alterable when the legislature shall please to alter it. If the former part of the alternative be true, then a legislative act contrary to the Constitution is not law. If the latter part be true, then written constitutions are absurd attempts on the part of the people to limit a power in its own nature eliminate." It was laid out a century and a half ago. Today, this Senate, with this amendment, is flirting with doing what we were warned not to do. And that is to say that we can somehow circumvent, override the Constitution with a statute. Let us go back to the minutes, Constitutional Convention, and to the language that came out of that. This particular document is very interesting. It says, "The restriction of calls of the yeas and nays to 1/5 is founded upon the necessity of preventing too frequent a recurrence to this mode of ascertaining the votes at the mere caprice of an individual. A call consumes a great deal of time and often embarrasses the just progress of beneficial measures. It is said to have been often used to excess in the Congress under the Confederation, and even under the present Constitution, it is notoriously used as an occasion annoyance by a dissatisfied minority to retard the passage of measures which are sanctioned by the approbation of a strong majority. The check, therefore, is not merely theoretical, and experience shows that it has been resorted to at once to admonish and control members in this abuse of the public patience and the public indulgence." The opponents of those of us, Senator Charleston, who have tried to stand up to the Constitution, have spread the propaganda story that we believe that roll call voting is unconstitutional. Nothing can be further from the truth. In fact, you were the author of the constitutional amendment. You and I both voted to extend roll call voting in the Senate. And I might say that the rules of the Senate require way more roll call voting than this statute that we have before us. The statute does not go as far as the Senate rules go, but it goes in other places. So, the Senate rules, number one, being broader and requiring more roll call vote, established for the record today, well, whatever comes out of this bill, that number one, we already have roll call voting, we have recorded votes, and in this bill, if it were supreme, would be less roll call voting than this Senate by a 2/3 majority has been willing to impose upon this body. That having been said, you then look at the early writings. Then you go to the constitutional history of South Carolina, which we did over the weekend, and started taking a look at the history of our section. The current provision is traceable to the 1868 Constitution, which is now in effect. And then you will, by looking on back, you will find that the provisions earlier than that existed from the 1780s forward, all the way, and they mirrored pretty much what was going on the federal level. Then you can go in here and take a look at the exact reasons for why this was put into effect. We're told today the provisions of the Constitution that were put in there of limitation, were put in there, they limited the power of the General Assembly. Those sections did not give us the power, they limited the power. The same question came up in Washington, D.C. And the question became whether or not, I believe it was the United States House or Senate, I'm trying to remember which one at the moment, until I find the sheet. Could they, by unanimous consent, change that provision in the Constitution or suspend it as it applies to that legislative body? They were told no. But today we're told it doesn't even take unanimous consent. You can change it by a majority vote of the General Assembly. Another departure in our history. Well, how should we interpret constitutions? How should they be looked at? I, of course, go back to the gentleman I greatly respected, Senator Barry Goldwater. He said, and I quote, "The framers of the Constitution had learned the lesson. They were not only students of history, but victims of it. They knew from vivid personal experience that freedoms depend on effective restraints against the accumulation of power in a single authority. And that is what the Constitution is, a system of restraints against the natural tendency of government to expand in the direction of absolutism," and he goes into the expansion of absolutism. So, that having been said, I take my guidance off of Senator Barry Goldwater's view of the Constitution. Then I went back over the weekend and also tried to look in this particular document right here and see what do they say about how you amend constitutions. How should they be viewed? Where and how? Let me quote a couple of quotes out of there that I think you'll find interesting. Quote, "And the policy of one age may ill-suit the wishes of policy of another age. The Constitution is not subject to such fluctuations. It is to have a fixed, uniform, permanent construction. It should be, so far at least as human affirmity will allow, not dependent upon the passions or parties of particular kind, but the same yesterday, today, and forever." And then they provide a method by which you may amend it. Not by will and wish, but a constitutional process for administration. Then I went and had some research done to find out about a strict constructionist approach to a Constitution. 1, the text of the Constitution. 2, the intent of the framers. And 3, the precedent. Senator from Charleston, the text of the Constitution is as clear as it can be. It does not grant to the General Assembly the power to make rules of procedure by law. Instead, it says, each house shall determine its rules of procedure. Not the General Assembly, not the House and the Senate, each separate. What does it take to understand the plain black letter words of the Queen's English? What does it take to understand that? Each shall determine its rules, not their rules, its rules of procedure. Each house. So on that text, number 1, the plain black letter. Then on down, it's in either section 17 or 22, it prescribes 10 House members, 5 senators, to guarantee a roll call vote. That's what it says. And there's where the provisions are put in. Then it goes to the intent of the framers. I invite you to go back and look at the history of our Constitution and the United States Constitution. It's very clear. It's not what today's politicians are saying. It's what they said. And you draw the intent of the framers from what they said, not what people on political stumps want to say 150 years later or something about it. And then you go to the precedent. Where is the precedent? Well, the precedent has always been that that is the case. The other side of the question is liberal constructions, or loose constructions, or whatever you want to call it, non-originalism approach. And that is, you take the broader view. And that is, you say there are social, political, and economic consequences to natural law or belief that higher moral law ought to trump inconsistent positive law. So we're there, constitutional. Now the senator from Pickens proposes an amendment. Let me tell you, first of all, what he does different from the Senate Judiciary Committee amendment before I go to some of its shortcomings. The amendment, the Senate Judiciary Committee said the statute does not take effect until the adoption of the constitutional amendment authorizing the law. Nobody in the Senate on either side of this question opposed the roll call vote. The division is not over roll call voting, it's over whether or not the rule trumps the statute and whether or not the Constitution is supreme in this debate. To boil it down into other things, there's attempts by political propagandists to get their way and to move the public. I appeal to the public. Those who are standing here have absolutely nothing to gain by insisting that the Constitution be followed, except for the people of the state. The Constitution should not be trampled upon. So the first thing that the Martin Amendment does is it takes out the section on making the bill. I'll take questions in just a second, Senator.
Senator Kershaw, with a question, insinuated that we have a point. The question of order. Order is present, Senator Kershaw.
So the first thing the amendment does is it removes making it an enabling statute and makes it automatically go into effect upon the signature of the governor. The second thing it does, that I noticed they were very careful not to tell you it does, is that the majority of the Senate Judiciary Committee decided to come down on the side of transparency and to expand the roll call votes to amendments. They want to take that out. Your amendment takes out roll call voting on amendments. That's the second thing that it does. The third thing it does is it puts in for the Senate a new, somewhat different procedure, Senator from Florence, on budgets. Now let me tell you why this language got played with, and also why they tampered with the rule on substantive amendments on third reading. They just said now, if there's any amendment on third reading, it's subject to a roll call vote. The Senate rule is a substantive amendment, because we have roll call votes on second. Why do I think they avoided the word substantive? For the very thing that the Senator from Charleston, Senator Campson, hammered on. Separation of power. The minute you insert the adjective substantive in front of the amendment in a code of laws is the minute you invite lawyers to sue over whether we followed the procedures accurately and the law was enacted under the law. Part of the major reason that the framers of our Constitution were very careful not to take procedures in the judiciary, in the executive, and in the legislature and start embodying them in the law where they can be argued about. The court is, on almost all of its procedures, the sole judge of its procedures. And it was to prevent the spillover, the encroachment of one branch of government on another. But getting back to their amendment, interestingly, look at the Senate rule. Take out your Senate rule book and look at what we say about roll call voting. If you read it, you'll find out that first of all, we have more roll call voting than is in the governor's bill, or the House bill, or the Martin Amendment, or anything else. This Senate is a leader in roll call voting, and did so with its own rules. But prior to third reading, Senator from Florida, of the annual general appropriations bill, each section of Part 1A with the corresponding provisos must be considered individually and receive a roll call vote. Now, let's go to the proposed amendment that we've got. It's different. The annual appropriations bill must be considered section by section prior to third reading. Sounds good, doesn't it? Just like we're doing. Of course, if you notice, they dropped out that language about provisos. They dropped all that out there. And then they added this language. It must receive a recorded roll call vote by the House of Representatives and the Senate when the pending question is the adoption of an individual section. Separated. Read it and look at it very carefully. Senator from Florence. Does it now mean that every time on second reading somebody says, I move to adopt a section, we got to have a roll call vote in the House and the Senate? Fundamentally different from what the same rule is. The reason that we wanted it section by section on third is because our amending occurs on second. It takes a 60% plus vote in here to get the power of amendment. So it seemed the proper thing to do, get all the amendments out of the way, and then vote section by section. I was interested in the answers to the questions under the way this rule is now constructed by the senator from Pickens. Does the vote section by section under the way this is worded close out the section? Can a member move to approve a section? Does it close out amendments? Or if it doesn't, do you have to have another roll call vote after the amendments? Well, if you put that in the law, maybe some judge, instead of presiding official, will make those decisions as to whether or not we've complied with our procedures. Because you have done what the framers set out to stop you from doing. And that is to have courts looking in here on political questions of procedure in this body that are decided by this body. That's why there were rules put in. The House operates differently. I affectionately call it almost a legislative racetrack over there. It's the 50% plus one rule in the House. And in the framers' mind, it was supposed to be closer to the popular will. But a bicameral legislature was set up because the framers were so suspicious of the accumulation of power that they were concerned about tyranny by the legislature. And they broke the legislature into two different houses, different terms, different methods of election. Then they even restricted the powers of the legislature by ensuring that, for instance, we cannot begin a revenue raise measure over here in the Senate. Restrictions on procedure, constitutional mandates. The issue for the people of South Carolina is roll call voting again. If I say it one time, I'll say it 20, because I've seen these press releases going out, and the propagandists spreading across South Carolina as though we've got something to hide in here. I'm delighted for roll call voting. We're on TV. This Senate has modernized its website and reached out based on the critique that we've got as to how we make this body more user-friendly with our website and see what's going on. But as much as the people want all of that, I don't believe, particularly in the conservative community across South Carolina, that they want us to now embark upon a new way of looking at the South Carolina Constitution. And that new way is, if the people want it, pass it. Let a court decide if it's constitutional or not. Litigate it. I'm telling you, people that vote in my district on how they feel about Obamacare, they feel like if the United States Congress exceeded the Constitution. But you see, I can go back and give you some quotes from up there. They're taking a similar attitude like some are now taking in South Carolina. I don't worry about one of them says, I don't worry about the Constitution on this, to be honest. Another one says the federal government can yes do most anything in this country, end quote. You go down that slippery slope when you abandon the philosophy of strict construction. When you begin to embrace the concept that constitutions contain secrets that the framers had in their heads but just didn't put on paper. And they just waiting to be discovered in the next century by some legal scholar who's digging in the Constitution and trying to find some new idea. I remember when the Senator from Pickens had his hearings and a public interest group came in with an opinion. I later found out the political leanings of that person who wrote that particular opinion. They're not my leanings. They contended that, of course, that the people should know what's going on. That's why we changed the rules. This Senate, when it gets rules, looks back on all the language we have. It stays pretty much on that course from Senate to Senate. But there is Supreme Court decisions. One, that reaffirms this rule authority. And number two, make it clear that one General Assembly cannot bind another. But you can if we amend the Constitution. And that's what a group of us in the committee proposed to do. Where we separated with our friend from Pickens is somehow they have swirled enough arguments around his head that he now has come to the idea that perhaps, well, if it doesn't conflict with the Senate rules, it's okay. And I saw President Collins write an editorial that essentially said, well, there's really nobody withstanding, and as long as the rules seem to mirror whatever the statute is, what's the issue? The issue may be that this Senate, for whatever reason, could change its rules. There's no guarantee that any of us will be here. Then the question is, the Senate may decide that it wants to have its roll call votes on the budget on second reading instead of third, because it moved its amending process somewhere else. But if we have the power, as Senators Pickens and others seem to think, without a constitutional amendment to impose rules of procedure on the House of Representatives, then members of the Senate, we have the power to prescribe the rules in General Assembly when we meet in the General Assembly. How votes are counted? All sorts of questions, if they're not covered by the Constitution. If you follow the philosophy that unless it's specifically covered in the Constitution, you can do it. That's what some are. Well, it says 1/5 hand, but what prevents a lower amount? Well, I found out when the United States Senate looked at that question, that you can't even change the Constitution, Senator McLaren, by unanimous vote, by unanimous consent. We can't ignore it. Every one of us in here is bound to apply the Constitution as best we know it. So I joined the Senator from Charleston in everything that he has to say about separation of powers. The vote that we're about to take is not about whether or not you want roll call voting, because the Senate Judiciary Committee report puts that in there. In fact, the report is more roll call voting than the Senator from Pickens' amendment, because he strikes some of it out. The question is whether or not the Constitution requires an amendment to put the statute in place. And even the proponents of this bill have admitted to you today that the rule trumps the word of the statute under the present Constitution. Why do you think they have supported the constitutional change? Because they know this is a political show that's underway. It's a political show about finishing up supposedly the issue of transparency. But to finish it up, we have to do it the right way. Not in the immediacy of the moment, but by the procedure that our ancestors, the framers of the Constitution, put in place. There's just, when I look back in this book, and start looking at some of the old writings here, you pull a couple of them out real quick. I think you'll find some of these interesting. And Joseph's story, he says, the reader must not expect to find in these pages any novel views and novel constructions. And he goes on to say, I have not the ambition to be the author of any new plan of interpreting the Constitution or of enlarging its powers by ingenious subtleties and learned doubts. The expositions can be regarded not as his opinions, than those of great minds that framed the Constitution. He goes on in here, and he goes through the 1/5, and he says, talking about our American Constitution, which I believe holds here in South Carolina. On the other hand, a rule of equal importance is not to enlarge construction of a given power beyond the fair terms merely because the restriction is inconvenient, impolitic, or even mischievous. If it is mischievous, the power of addressing the evil lies with the people by amendment. It is doing for the people what they have not chosen to do for themselves. He goes on, he says, temporary delusions, prejudices, excitements, and objects have irresistible influence in mere questions of policy and convenience. On words of construction, he says, the words are to be taken in their natural and quotes in cases back then. The words are to be taken in their natural and obvious sense, and not in the sense of reasonably restricted or enlarged. Then in the case of Gibbons versus Otter, quote, as men whose intentions require no concealment generally employ the words which most directly and aptly express the ideas they intend to convey. The enlightened patriots who framed our Constitution and the people who adopted it must be understood to have employed words in their natural sense and to have intended what they say. Goes on and on. I'm not going to bore you with all of the book, but I wanted this weekend one last chance to go back and see it. Maybe I just got it wrong. Somehow I missed a vote somewhere. Had I somehow just not gotten it right? Because very easy politically, it's very easy to explain. I'm just voting. I'm voting for that bill. I'm voting for the statute. It's an easy way out. The hard way out is to stand up and explain the Constitution. And the fact that you, as an elected official, are limited by that Constitution. I'm willing to put the question to the voters, but I'm not willing, from my point of view, to take my vote and, in my firm belief, walk on the black letter of the Constitution. Remember I told you that they conveniently left out the word in our current rule? Remember what that was in the rule? Go back now and just think for a minute on this particular issue. And there, Senator from Pickens' amendment is a bill or joint resolution is amended in the pending question. Is the passage of a bill on third reading. The rule of the Senate, because there's no reason to have another vote unless there's been a substantive amendment. So, we put that in there. Just as the framers warned us about frivolous votes in here, taking too much time. We leave out a comma, we leave out a period, we need to substitute a word. Under their bill, we got to go back and have a roll call vote. Why they didn't put the word substantive in there is because of their deep-seated suspicion about their weakness constitutionally where they were. That the courts, the judiciary, would have to weigh in on was it or wasn't it a substantive amendment. So they just said, all of it on third. But in their clamor to do that, They left out and added new language. Now let me tell you why, members of the Senate, what they have not told you today. And I went back to have a look to see what they were up to. The House rules. Go and look at the House rules. What they have not told you is that the House requires roll call voting, section by section on the budget, not on the third, on second. So I guess the House can either amend this bill back to second and send it back to us and conflict be on the Senate side, or the conflict be on the House side. And then the House has Rule 7.2 you should go take a look at. And look at the other conflicts, Senator Flory, that's starting to come up. The reason I address you is because your newspaper was attempting in an editorial to criticize the Senate Judiciary Committee for not applying roll call voting to amendments. And yet, the very amendment they're trying to kill today is the one that does expand it to amendments. When you vote for the Senator from Texas amendment, you vote to take the roll call voting off of the amendments. You bring in the convoluted language these have to import to try to reconcile the House and Senate rules. Why? Why didn't you just put it all in there? Because deep down, they got a constitutional problem. Conflict. The rule trumps the statute, and then the statute, if it is governing and is subject to interpretation, becomes the business of a separate branch of government, no longer ruling in here and a vote of the members. It just should be so obvious too. The vote we're about to take is not over whether you're pro or not roll call vote. It's over whether or not you want it broader. Senator from Lexington, here's your chance to be a champion of transparency. It's a broader. And Senator from Johnson, Senator Campson, we defend the Constitution like you argued in the morning paper by not letting the statute go into effect until the people of this state, under the proper procedure, take the constitutional amendment and adopt it. It's empowering the public. It's doing it the right way. It's abiding by the Constitution. Now, I respect my friends on the other side. They're just a little bit more liberal than I am. They have a looser approach to the language of constitutions. You know, some of us on the pro-life side criticize the U.S. Supreme Court because they adopted that concept of the penumbra and weighed in, Senator from Charleston, finding rights that the framers of the Constitution never put in there. But now we're told that there are things in this Constitution we just haven't seen and the framers didn't put in there that we just need to accept. So I call it a looser, a non-traditional approach, we call it a liberal approach. That's what I see. I cast my lot with Senator Goldwater. He's the guy who inspired me to get in back years ago, to have an interest in politics, and ultimately I became a Goldwater Republican, and I have Senator Goldwater. I chastised some in the Senate, Republican and Democrat, who don't believe, for instance, I heard Senator Goldwater about freedom. That's why I believe we vote by a raffle ticket. I mean, it's just unbelievable to me that people in this state can't vote on whether or not they want to buy a raffle ticket. Give a charitable donation. I tried to follow the philosophy of the invisible hand. Government should not act except to protect people from the invisible hand. But here, the invisible hand is the slippery slope from the high ground of strict construction of the Constitution to saying, well, it might say that. It might say each house shall determine its rules of procedure, not their rules of procedure. All of that may be accurate. The framers are very specific. specific. I understand the intent in the Constitution all the way back from the language, the Articles of Confederation coming forward. And despite all of that evidence, despite all of that black letter constitutional law, people want the statute, so we'll give it to them now. Instead of, where's the constitutional amendment? That should be going with this. That should have gone with it. But you see, that's what the central issue is here in this amendment. The Senator from Pickens is peeling away the enabling language. The House of Representatives said over here, I never accused him of being a citadel of constitutional scholarship over there. I, on many occasions, criticized the inartful drafting of bills in the House of Representatives. But I understand the role they perform, and it's time to step back and say, let's do this thing the right way. I hope the Senate will, from the viewpoint I take, I hope I have not offended any of you. I did not intend to do that. You have your viewpoints, and I have mine. You may think you can read it another way. When you leave the black letter words, you're into interpretation. And the black letter words, that is what the framers said. Remember what I said, it's been carried from constitution to constitution. The constitutional amendment we got will create a constitutional right to roll call votes on certain things the General Assembly puts in statute. The constitutional right to the roll call vote is already there when 5 senators require it. It's already required. No one in this body that I'm aware of on either side has taken the position that roll call votes are unconstitutional. No one's done that. It's the method, how we get there. And I would simply tell you that what we're doing, we should not let the ends justify the means. We're specific. The Constitution is specific. I wish my friend, the senator from Richmond, was here. I love to read to him about from Barry Gore's books. But I notice I get him uncomfortable on occasion, so I want to not read to him today. But please think about it. Think again about what John Marshall said. The Constitution is either a superior term on law, unchangeable by ordinary means, or it is on a level with ordinary legislative acts, and like other acts is alterable when the legislature shall please to alter it. If the former part of the alternative be true, then a legislative act contrary to the Constitution is not law. If the latter part be true, then written constitutions are absurd attempts on the part of the people to limit power in its own nature, eliminate it. So I close again by appealing to you on the basis of the separation of powers to please think about what you're doing. We'll put a statement in the journal that this vote is not on the question of whether you're for or against roll call voting. As far as I'm concerned, this is a question of whether you take the approach that the Constitution says what it says, or it says something more than what the framers of all of those constitutional conventions, even when I believe it was Governor West's commission looked at it. They looked at the section and carried over and put it, agreed not to disturb it. It's time and time again that all of a sudden we can disturb it, not by constitutional conventions and not by amendment, but we're told now we can do it by majority vote. The argument here apparently is that we have much greater powers than the framers laid down in the black letter law of the Constitution. And once you go down the slippery slope, there's no way back for us. You cannot pick and choose when it is what it says and when it's not what it says. because that always becomes a political discussion. We appeal on the Greater Plains, people of South Carolina. Our Constitution is solid, it must be adhered to, and there is a method by which we can amend it. The Senate Judiciary Committee has acted on a constitutional amendment. It's prepared to try to go forward. But this is wrong what we're doing. In almost a stampede to the finish line, we're going to go ahead and put this bill in and look at the contortions they've had to go to with this language to somehow make it appear that it does not conflict, so as not to get a rub in the court. Why? Because deep down they know what I'm saying is accurate. They know the Constitution trumps it. They know what I'm saying is the black letter law of the Constitution. Now, I'll close by saying you always can escape that by saying, oh, but it's subject to interpretation. That was framed over 100 and something years ago when things have changed. Well, the framers knew that, and they put in there methods to change it. And we're prepared to make that change. But this Senate should not approve this amendment. I hope you stick with the Judiciary Committee amendment, which expands it to all amendments, but most importantly, makes it an enabling statute. It says this goes into effect when and if the people amend the Constitution, it becomes effective, giving the General Assembly the power by law to do these specific things. Constitutions are documents of grants of power and limitation. They are not documents for vivid imaginations and the opportunity to try to figure out a way, 100 and something years later, the framers really had that in the back of their mind, they just didn't say it. So, I think Senator Charleston made a convincing case. Just as was Barry Goldwater said, these people, they weren't historians, whatever, they were victims of history. And they stopped and put meticulous safeguards in separation of powers and things. And we now, in a modern political climate, are stampeding in disregard of that. I would hope the Senate would perform its role in the bicameral legislature and say, look, House of Representatives, number one, we've adopted rules that are much broader with roll call vote. If you want to put it in statute, let's do it the right way. The Senate is not a bastion of opposition to roll call vote. It's a friend of it. Its rules prove it. But its track record is it's been a friend of the Constitution. Not always. I've gotten up here argued about some, and I think the Senator Nathan will agree with me. I warned about that. Blending bill got bogged down, and then you got getting struck down. The Constitution is very specific. Single subject. Some thought it was open to interpretation, and we had to be pulled back to reality. Why did the Senator Pickens? I love to watch him write. He is very talented at writing, eloquent at the podium. But he knows, when I see him scribbling and moving those words around on those rules, I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to tiptoe around what he knows is the ultimate constitutional trap. And if there's the slightest conflict in there, he knows somebody can get standing. And he's got to know that the rule trumps the statute until the Constitution is amended. I was told that the learned people, like Betsy Graves, one of the